Hi everyone, my name's Ollie and welcome to my channel. In today's video we are doing a holiday nightmare story time. So this is a video I've been planning on doing for a really long time. I am shouting. Shh. So I've had too much coffee and I'm just like, oh my god, what am I doing? Before we get started on the video, just a quick little disclaimer. I am not going to be disclosing any names or the name of the company or anything like that in this video. I don't want to say the name of the company. I'm not saying any staff names. I'm not saying the hotel name. I'm not saying anything because I don't want to get sued. So just putting that out there. Don't bother commenting, asking what it was called or where I booked through, because I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. So this happened when I had just turned 18. This was me and my partner's first holiday together, and it was also our first holiday alone away from our families. We went into a high street travel agent who I'm not naming, but there's only a few of them. So there's not that many different ones it could be, but yeah, it was basically, we thought because this is our first time going on holiday together and our first time alone, we needed to go in store just to make sure we didn't mess anything up. I didn't want to do it online for the first time just in case I messed something up. When we went into the store initially, we had a look online and we had a couple of things in mind. So to be honest, we were looking at going somewhere like Cape Verde on holiday. If you don't know where Cape Verde is, a lot of English people go there. It's like a little island off of Africa, and there's loads of really nice all-inclusive hotels there and nice resorts. When we went to the travel agent, she kind of had a little look at a few places in Cape Verde, and then she said, are you kind of open to going other places? The lady started looking at some other places and she started showing us some places in Cuba. She showed us this hotel. Now, the holiday to Cuba costs the same amount as going to Cape Verde, and obviously when you go to the Caribbean, you get all the nice beaches and the kind of slightly better weather and stuff like that. So that's kind of what swung it for us. So the hotel that we were sold was a 4-star plus, so between 4 and 5 basically. It was sold as a luxury all-inclusive resort with multiple swimming pools, like a private beach, had several restaurants, and obviously our flights and everything were included as well. So we were like, yep, cool, let's go ahead and book. So we decided to book that holiday. When we were in the store, the lady assured me, she was like, yeah, it's a, you know, it's a nice hotel, and people have gone there before, blah, 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 whatever. So I was like, cool, 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 it's all good. This is why I would never, ever book in store in a travel agent again. I would only ever book online for the simple reason that you don't get to see the reviews for yourself, and I really just took her word for that, and that was my mistake. But yeah, when we got home, like a few days later, I was just looking at the holiday online and I started looking at the reviews and I was thinking, oh, like the reviews were not that good. Like some of them were like, oh yeah, it's okay, but some of the reviews were like really slagging this place off, and I was thinking, have we made a mistake here? So we paid, I think it was about £2,000 in total, and that was for a week in Cuba, all inclusive, for me and my partner. The holiday rolled around, we went to the airport and we flew out and everything was fine. When we actually arrived, we had an issue with our coach transfer. So if you've ever been on an all-inclusive holiday, especially if it's with a big company like ours was, then you will basically board coaches that will take you to your hotel straight from the airport. We got to the coach that we should be going on for our hotel and they had none of our details. And I was like, well, how are we supposed to get to our hotel? And they were like, you'll have to make your own way. We were in this completely different place to where we were used to. I was just absolutely horrified at the thought of having to try and get a taxi, like just with me and my partner. That really scared me. Plus the fact that Cuba is a closed currency, which means you're not actually able to buy the currency until you get to the country. So we were planning on changing all our money in the hotel, so we didn't even have any money at this point that we could pay with. So thankfully I had printed off all of our travel documents and information, so I actually had a book in my bag with all of our details in, and it had our hotel, our transfers, like basically everything. So I pulled that out my bag and showed him, and he was like, okay, there must be a mistake on our end. So I was like, good job I had it then, wasn't it? Because I could be stranded. So showed him that, and we got on the coach. Now, because he didn't have any of our information, every other person on the coach basically got like a little envelope, and the envelope had your room keys, it had kind of all your booking information, like loads of stuff in it. So basically everything you needed for the holiday, like a little holiday pack, was in this envelope, and it basically meant you didn't have to check in when you get to the hotel because they'd done it all for you. We didn't get that, so when we got to the hotel we had to queue for ages to get checked in. So once we got to the front of the queue, we were queuing for about an hour and a half. Finally get to the front of this queue, and the woman at reception had like a major issue with us, and she basically was saying that we were booked in but we hadn't filled out our information correctly, which obviously, because we'd gone into the travel agent and booked, that wasn't our fault. The travel agent had done all of the bookings and details and information, so I don't actually know what was the issue. Like, she never actually told us, she just said there's an issue with it. So we basically had to sit there and fill out all of our information forms again, which she then put through. So we were at reception for maybe like 3 hours. Basically it all got resolved and they gave us our room keys. So we had obviously booked a double deluxe suite or something. It was like an extra nice room, and obviously we only wanted one bed, like one big bed. So we get to this room and they'd given us a room with 3 single beds. 3 single beds, like what a random number. It's not even 2 single beds, it's 3 single beds. I was like so tired by this point as well. I was just like, I don't have the energy to deal with this. So it was quite late and we just decided to go to bed that evening, and we would sort it out the next day. Now, not only did they give us the wrong room in terms of beds and stuff, the room was absolutely disgusting. Like, the bedding had stains on it, there was hairs everywhere, and there was bugs crawling around. All of the tiles on the floor were like smashed. The TV was older than me and it didn't work. The room was just gross. Like, there was no other way around it. The room was gross, and the main issue we had with the room was the fact that the door didn't lock properly. So we had to like barricade with furniture. Every hotel I've ever been to, your rooms come out from like into a hallway. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, on a standard hotel there's like a hallway. It's all indoors and your rooms come off of a hallway and then it goes down to the lobby or whatever. This hotel wasn't like that. It was more like an American motel. So where like your room is like a separate, I don't know how to explain this, like a separate like apartment, and then your door just opens like to the outside world. It doesn't go off into like a hallway. That made it even worse, the fact that we couldn't lock the door, but it also just went out into the open, and like anyone could come onto our resort and just come into our room. Anyway, we managed to get through that night, and the next morning we went to reception to get our room sorted. When I got to the reception, there was 2 stands for the holiday company that we went with. So you know, usually you have like a holiday rep and they'll have a stand. There was 2 stands with 2 different people. The queue for the stand was so long. Literally, there was like maybe 30 people in each queue waiting to speak to the holiday reps. They weren't happy, and I was like, okay, well at least it's not just us. We got on one of the queues. One had a man and one had a woman. No signage to say what the queues were for or anything like that, and I asked the people in front of us and they just said, we're just complaining. So there wasn't any particular queue. I think both queues were just for anything. We explain what our issue is and she's just like, oh, I can't help you with that. I'm like, girl, that's your job. What do you mean you can't help me with that? So she basically said, you'll need to speak to my colleague. So then I had to get in the second queue of another like 30 people and wait to get to the front. So this had taken like about 2 hours, and if you know where Cuba is, it's very hot, and we were there in like the middle of summer, and this hotel didn't have aircon. Like, they said they had aircon, but I don't remember anywhere in that hotel feeling aircon. There was there wasn't aircon, they lied. And we get to the front of it and he kind of was just acting like it was all just like fun and games. I was clearly like not happy. I basically explained, you know, me and my partner have come on holiday. We've been given separate beds, the room is disgusting, and it just isn't what I've booked. So the guy was like, oh, that's fine, that's fine. Are you happy with the rest of the hotel? Now by this point we'd not really looked around that much, but I was like, judging from what I've seen, no, not really. So he was like, okay, well we can look at moving you hotels. I'm thinking, sick. So the guy started looking at some hotels and he started showing us other options. One of them looked okay and I sort of said, okay, well we could maybe transfer there. And he wanted us to pay another £800 each to transfer to this other hotel, and I was like, that's basically just doubling the cost of our holiday. He was like, okay, no problem, I'll get the room sorted for you anyway. So he sorted out the room. The room was awful. It was exactly the same as the other one. It did only have one bed, but it was just 2 single beds pushed together. So there was like a join in the middle anyway. And I feel like the second room might have actually been even more disgusting than the first room. The second room that we got had like just all the same issues as the first room. It was just disgusting. It smelled awful. Nothing in the room was working, like only half of the lights were working. There was stains on everything. All the tiles had like cracks in them. There was like nasty like mold in the bathroom. It was just gross, and the door didn't lock either, so not an ideal situation. At this point I was just like, you know what, I've just given up. Like, I honestly don't have the energy. So we got into that room and we went back to reception to complain again because I just was not happy with the state of the room. By this point I'd kind of gauged the fact that we weren't going to get anything better than that, and that's kind of like the standard that the hotel was at. We had had an awful night's sleep. We had no internet connection at all. Both of our phones do have abroad plans, so if we're abroad we're supposed to be able to use them. I don't know if it was just because we were quite rural or if it's just all of Cuba, but there was no phone connection at all anywhere. So we couldn't get in touch with the holiday company in question, or our families or anyone, just to say like, we're not happy. So basically we went to the guy at reception again, who was our holiday rep, and basically I was just like, look, we just want to go home. Like, we've had an awful 48 hours. This hotel so far has been hideous. We just want to go home. The guy was like, well, you're actually already booked on the next flight out. So I was like, are you joking? So basically we were just stranded at this place for a week. Yeah, so we were like, okay, let's just try and get on with it then. So I remember crying so much on this holiday because it was just awful. You know, we just had to kind of accept that that was it. We're stuck there for a week. We can't go to another hotel because they're all too expensive, and we're just gonna have to try and make the most of it. So like I said, the room was horrendous. Now, as for the rest of the hotel, it was not great. You know when you go to like a resort and they have like a little decorative like lazy river that goes throughout the resort with water going through it, but like you wouldn't get in it, but it's like decorative, if that makes sense. So they had one of those running through our resort, and basically it was drained, so it didn't actually have any water in it, but it just had like this green sludge like along the bottom, and it absolutely stank, like sewagey kind of smell. It was honestly disgusting. So that went through the whole resort, and then just the resort in general just looked really ropey. Like all of the paint was coming off, loads of like the stonework on the floor was all smashed and cracked. There was loads of stray animals walking around the resort, like dogs and cats. If someone was carrying food, they would literally be like going for that person. Then we had an issue with the food. The food in the buffet was honestly disgusting, like so bad. They labelled everything incorrectly, and I don't think anything was cooked properly. So my boyfriend actually had some chicken wings when we were there, and when he bit into this chicken wing, it was bright pink inside, and I was like, that doesn't look like chicken. And he was like, it tastes like ham. And I was like, the sign says that is a chicken wing and it's actually like ham. It couldn't have been ham because it looked like a chicken wing, like the shape of it and everything looked like a chicken wing, and it had a bone in it. So I was thinking, what the hell is that meat? Because it isn't chicken. So basically we ate in the restaurant the first night and it made us really sick the next day. We both felt literally like we were dying. So yeah, basically we ended up just living on bottled water and Pringles from the gift shop because that's all we could buy. The other thing that happened was we went in the pool that was outside our room. So basically the resort had a few different pools. Our room was quite near to the sea, so our pool was the one that was nearest the sea. Basically, we went in our pool and it was really, really empty. Like there wasn't really many people in there. And we were in the pool for maybe like 10 minutes. And my partner gets quite sensitive skin, but I've never ever seen chlorine do what it did to his skin. His skin went literally bright red within about 5 minutes, and it was like almost blistering, and I was like, you need to get out of this pool. We'd only been in there a few minutes and he started getting out of the pool, and obviously we were talking and I was saying like, you know, your skin, it looks so sore. And this English couple were walking past us and they must have heard us speaking in English, and they were saying, oh, have you just been in the pool? And I was like, yeah, why? And apparently they'd had a bad storm and all of the sewage had come up and had flooded the entire like ground floor area of the hotel and had filled the pool with sewage. And I was like, what? We'd just been in this pool. They were like, don't go in the pool, don't go in the pool. I was like, well, it's too late, we've been in there now. This is hearsay because obviously we weren't there at the time and this is just going off of what they told us. But they said that the pool had filled with sewage and all they'd seen was that the staff was scooping all of the sewage out of the pool and then treating the water that was in there. So they didn't actually drain the pool, they just scooped and treated. Now I don't know about you, but if I had a swimming pool that filled with sewage, I would have that drained and deep cleaned. But they decided not to do that, and that probably explains why the chlorine levels were so high, to try and make sure they were killing all the bacteria, which is why my boyfriend's skin was like on fire. Now after this incident, we were both so violently ill. We were being sick. My partner's skin just got progressively worse. I had headaches and it just wasn't really the luxury experience that I'd signed up for, to be honest. Like, we were still trying to phone the UK, so we actually managed to get one call to the holiday company and one call to our families. We were basically like distraught down the phone. We actually spoke to my partner's family. All of my partner's family, like his parents, his grandparents, but like all these different people were going into these high street stores trying to get something sorted so that we could either get home or something, because we were both really unwell and just the holiday just been a nightmare. And we were on like day 3 by this point, maybe not even that, like day 2, and we had like food poisoning and we had like sewage poisoning from the swimming pool. The room was disgusting, we had no Wi-Fi, just one thing after another. So yeah, basically when we did get through to the holiday company and their helpline, they basically said, oh, don't worry about it, we can sort it out when you get back. And I was like, okay. But if you're on holiday, like the main thing I took away from this was, if you are on holiday and you're not having a good time, you need to complain straight away, because if you leave it at all, or if you wait until you get home, they will not help you. Like, they do not want to know. We just tried to get on with it as best we could. We were really unwell and the time came for us to go home. The flight was delayed quite a lot, waiting about 3 or 4 hours for our flight because it was delayed. When we finally got on the flight, everyone was cheering and so excited to be going home, which really spoke volumes, because I've never been on a flight home where people are cheering. There were several issues on our flight home. So we'd been on the plane for about 3 hours and the captain comes on over the speakers and was like, we have an issue. Is there a doctor on board the plane? And everyone on the plane is like, so there wasn't a doctor on board. So another 5 or 10 minutes goes past and he puts out another one saying, look, this is like a severe emergency. Is there anyone on board with any medical training, a vet, a dentist, anything? No one comes forward. So by this point, everyone on the plane is like, oh my god, what's going on? Like, it must be really bad if they're like wanting a vet to come forward. Like, that's got to be bad. So if you, like, I'm really, really bad at geography, but as far as I understand, the UK is like up here, Cuba is like over here, this is all sea, so there's like nowhere for you to do an emergency landing. So we'd been on the plane for maybe like 3 or 4 hours, and the captain has put out 2 or 3 different messages basically saying, look, we've got an emergency, anyone come forward if you've got medical training. No one came forward, so the captain puts out another, I keep saying captain, it's pilot, isn't it? Pilot. So the pilot puts out another little cool thing, and he basically says, we've got a medical emergency on board, we're going to have to do an emergency landing. At this point, I'm thinking, emergency landing where though? Because we're in the middle of the sea. Like, I don't know where are we gonna land? This could be completely wrong, but basically we ended up doing an emergency landing in Canada. So say we'd been on the plane for like 4 hours, it was gonna take like another 5 hours, I think, to get back to the UK, or it would take 4 hours to get to Canada. So we went 4 hours to Canada. We stopped in Canada, and they basically got the unwell person on, like, off of the plane, which, like, obviously this isn't the holiday company's fault, but when, like, how they dealt with it all afterwards and during was really bad. And I, like, obviously horrendous that this happened to this poor person. At the same time, they didn't deal with the other passengers very well. So yeah, basically, I don't know what was wrong with the person, but they were taken off board, and we were on the ground for an hour before we had anyone telling us what was happening. So when you land in another country, like an emergency landing, you're not allowed to get off the plane. So we all had to stay on the plane. The captain puts out another message. Not a captain, it's a pilot! So we've been on the ground an hour, and the pilot puts out a message basically just explaining what's going on. So just like an update as to what's happening. We've got the passenger off of the plane now, but we're having an issue finding their luggage. So we're gonna have to take a little bit longer. Hopefully it won't take too long. So another hour passes. We've been on the ground 2 hours by this point. We're still not allowed to get off the plane. The pilot puts out another thing basically saying the medical emergency has now escalated further. So we're all thinking, well, the guy's off the plane now, so like, how's it escalating further? So I don't know if this is what happened, but my assumption would be that the person passed away, because I don't know any other reason as to why they would do this. So basically, we now have to take the family off the plane as well. So they had to get all of the family and everyone he was travelling with off of the plane. And then they had to find all of their luggage as well. So another hour, maybe 2 hours passed. So we've been on the ground for like at least 3, if not 4 hours by this point. And people were getting really agitated. Like, people had, obviously we'd all been on a plane for like 8 or 9 hours. We were all delayed before getting on the plane. We hadn't been served any food by this point, I don't believe. And that was the other issue, is that, you know, normally on a plane you can buy food. They'd completely run out. They didn't have anything that you could purchase. They didn't have biscuits, crisps, drinks, anything. There weren't any shops in the airport, so we couldn't buy anything. So we hadn't eaten in ages. We were real hungry, and we just, I don't know, I just felt like none of the staff were being very helpful to anyone, and people on the plane were definitely getting annoyed at this point. So we've been on the ground, I want to say like 4 hours. The pilot then puts out another call, basically just saying that everything's resolved now, but we need to refuel. I'm like, girl. Yeah, basically they refuel the plane, takes another hour, and then we finally take off. So we had been on the plane for maybe like, say like 10 hours by this point, and we take off. So then we have to fly from Canada back to the UK. And I think that took maybe like, I want to say about 8 hours. So in total, we had been on this plane for like about 18 hours, give or take. A long time to be on a plane for. And just when I thought it was all over and it couldn't actually get any worse, when we got home and we opened up our luggage, the baggage handlers in Cuba had actually stolen loads of stuff out of our bags. So I always lock my suitcases. They had actually cut the locks off of the suitcases, and they had taken all of our expensive aftershave, like, and perfume and cologne, all of my expensive makeup, basically anything that's expensive that was a product that was branded. So we had like Chanel perfume, Clarins, Clinique, MAC makeup, like anything that was branded and expensive was gone. So I don't know about you guys, but before I go on holiday, I always like to buy new bottles of everything, so that I've got like a fresh bottle of aftershave, I've got a fresh, all my makeup is fresh, like I just like to have fresh everything. So they'd stolen stuff that was pretty much new, and it had just all been taken, and yeah, it had all just been taken, and I could tell it had been tampered with because our bags were really like rummaged through, and like there was just stuff everywhere. We got back and I complained to the company. So basically it developed over about a year. This went on, and I actually took it to an ombudsman, which I don't know if they have them everywhere in the world, but in the UK, basically, if you have a product or a service and you're not happy with it and the company won't deal with it, you take them to the ombudsman. And it's similar to like citizens' advice, and basically but the ombudsman can like act on your behalf. So basically, if the ombudsman rules that the company is out of line, they will order them to pay a certain amount or whatever, and it can go to court and stuff like that. So I actually went through an ombudsman, which I did have to pay for. And basically, it got to the point where the ombudsman were basically saying, look, we're taking them to court and we're going to get your money back. And then all of a sudden, the holiday company wanted to know, and they actually got in touch with me. And this was the first time I'd actually been able to speak to a person about this and not been mugged off. So they phoned me and basically offered me a refund of the holiday, which we did decide to accept because I just didn't want to get messed around anymore. But yeah, they did actually refund the holiday in the end, but it did take me a lot of work to get that money back. So moral of the story is book your holidays online, check the reviews, read the reviews, and if it all goes pear-shaped, make sure you complain as much as you can to the right people when you are on holiday, because that is the only way you will get your money back. If I can find any pictures or anything like that of like the rooms and stuff like that, I'll put it all on the screen now. So I hope you all enjoyed watching today's video as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. If you did enjoy watching today's video, please leave me a massive like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions about today's video or any other video recommendations for me, please leave me a comment down below as well. And without further ado, I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.